For Sprint4, you guys are going to be in this final push to get everything completed for this project. And your deliverables are the developer journal. There is also a unit testing assignment that you need to complete. That's all individual. For the team, you need to test the app, and you also need to make sure that you have the landing page finished. And then the team is going to need to develop technical documentation that is added to the project notebook. Individually, each team member needs to thoroughly test their own front end based on the user stories. So you should basically implement all of the user stories. And if for some reason something does not work, then the user story should be removed. Okay, and that feature should be removed. And once you've thoroughly tested, then you are going to create end user documentation for your front end. And that is basically everything a user, which is just not a techie person, a non-tech person, everything that they need to know to, use your front end. Okay, and pictures and instructions are necessary in user documentation. So you're going to want a lot of screenshots and pretty detailed instructions. And we will take a look at the documentation requirements. The developer journal is kind of the same as you guys have been doing all semester. I do have resources on technical documentation, user documentation, and unit testing. And then here's the unit testing assignment. And we have the documentation. Let's take a look at that. Okay, and here are the instructions. All right, so your deliverables here is your project notebook. You've got any additional user stories, and you will also have any revised user stories based on your testing. And the your test document, which is basically the user stories with the acceptance criteria. Each one of you needs to go through that when you are testing your front end. Okay, and also each one of you needs to complete user documentation, which I just talked about. As far as the technical documentation, that needs to be in the project notebook, and there only needs to be one. And the technical documentation is really for a developer who would be a new team member. What do they need to do to create their own front end? So they have to install a working development environment. And you will need to let them know, what framework we're using, what version of .NET we're using. Do they need to know how to do link queries in SQL? Okay. Probably mentioning that we're using Entity Framework and Razor Pages. All of that is something that a new team member would need to know. So all of the technical aspects of the project. And one of the most important things is the version of .NET. Okay, and so how that portion is going to be scored, or how your team portion is going to be scored, is based on this little rubric. You can see for the technical documentation, endpoints and routes. So basically, that is what we're keying up here in the URL. How do you bring up the different pages? What testing methods you did. I already mentioned the architecture and the frameworks. And we are not going to be deploying. However, you do need to indicate in the technical documentation where you could deploy. Okay, and I will just tell you right now, you can either deploy to a Microsoft server, and if it's not a Microsoft-based server, if it's Linux or Unix, they do have to have Kestrel installed, which basically allows these apps to run. So you can't just throw it up on a Unix machine and think that it's going to work. Okay, so that all needs to be pointed out in the technical documentation. So you guys may want to split up, you know, how you are going to write that and who's going to be responsible for different sections. Also, in your notebook, you do need to do that last reflection for Sprint4 for your team. Other things the team is going to need to do is there's actually 2 presentations. There is one video presentation that you will do before the in-class presentation. And this should be, you know, formal. It should not be a rough run through. This should be after you have practiced it a few times and you know who's going to talk when, then videotape it. Okay, and turn that in. That is due before you do it in class. And then we will have the live presentation in class. And we will take a look at those instructions in a minute. As far as the individual portion, I already mentioned that you have to test and document your own front end, implement all of your user stories, you know, remove anything that is not working properly, and then develop your documentation for your own front end. Okay, and so this is what you will be scored on for your front end. Okay, and just looking back here, so we've got the project notebook, and you just need to submit one for the team. You've got the notebook should have all of the technical and user documentation in it. The completed test document where you have gone through the user stories and indicated if something passed or failed. And if it failed, it has to be removed. Not a feature you're going to be including, at least in this release. And the reflection. So that should all be in your project notebook. I do want to link to your Trello board. And this should be your last one. And then the functional solution would have the external persistence, which you do, because you guys are all utilizing a database, and all of the CRUD operations should work. Okay, and then your entire project does need to be up on GitHub. Okay, and so again, this is the rubric for that. And let us talk about our presentations next. All right, so for the presentation, these are both team activities, so you guys are going to have to practice together. The rubrics are very similar. So you're going to need a video presentation, and then you're going to do a live presentation. Okay, and what I will probably do, because that video presentation is actually due before the live presentations, you want to make sure that you do a good job on that, because I will be putting that into the peer critique to remind people of what your presentation was all about. So if you come in here, this is what you will see as far as, you know, how you have to critique your peers. And for this restaurant review, I will put the video at the top of that. Okay. And then the people that did not participate in creating that app will do the replies and the review. And so there's a review for each group. Okay, so the video presentation is due on the 22nd. Okay, and this is before we do it in class. Okay, and then on the 22nd, we will do the live presentations. Okay, so this is due, I think I have it due, might be due at 3. Let me see. Oh, 4 o'clock. So it's due at the beginning of class, which means you do not have class to do that video. It needs to be done ahead of time. During class, you are going to do your live presentation. And the rubric for that is pretty much the same as the one for the practice, the practice video that you guys are doing. And so what I expect is that every team member participates in this, and every team member can certainly show their own front end. Okay. Your presentation should be organized, and you should know who's going to talk when. You should go through not just the front end, but discuss any issues that came up, coding challenges that you had, different things that you did. Okay, and each one of you should discuss, what you encountered in your own front end. And if you were helping your peers, you should also discuss that as well. Okay, so that is how you are going to be scored. And it's the same basic rubric for the video as it is for the live presentation. Okay, and so you do want to practice doing this because if you've never practiced before and you just kind of, do it off the cuff, it's going to look very disorganized. So make sure you guys run through it and you know who's going to talk when. Okay, so that is what we are doing for presentation week. So this will be on the Tuesday. And then you just need to fill out the critiques within the next week. I will be putting you guys into debrief teams, which I will try to make you with different people that weren't necessarily in your group. And I have not set those up yet, but I will be doing that. And then only one of you in the debrief group is going to have to record answers. But you will need to put all of your classmates, whoever's in your group, put their names at the top. And then each one of you is going to answer these questions. And you guys will discuss them as a group during class. Okay, so that is another in-class activity that you have to be there for. And that is pretty much it. This training module brainstorming, you'll notice that I have this due when our, basically when we start our first sprint for the training module. And so what I would like for each of you to do here is kind of brainstorm on a topic that you are interested not only in learning, but in teaching each other. Okay, so it has to be something new. It cannot be something that I have taught you. You are going to be developing a lesson plan. You are going to be coming up with learning objectives and outcomes. And so you not only have to learn the material, you have to put it together to teach each other. So you're going to be developing a lesson plan. You are going to need video instructions. You are going to develop a hands-on assignment and some type of test. And so the materials need to be professional. And I would like you guys all to use the wiki feature on GitHub for this. Okay, so if you have a complicated topic, I just want you to know it is perfectly okay for you to assign homework to your peers before you do the training in class. So if there's things they need to have installed, if there's things that they need to, introductory material they need to read, that can be part of this, okay? So this is where you guys are going to brainstorm. And what I will try to do is create groups where people are interested in similar training projects. That's part of the reason I'm having you guys do this. Okay, so that is what we have going on for the last couple weeks of our master detail app.